Okay, welcome back to Talkin Knicks. I'm Tom Piccolo, recording this on Sunday evening, just moments after the Knicks beat the Pacers in Indiana, 109 to 106. That was good for the team's seventh straight win. It's the longest win streak currently in the NBA. This was a game that saw the Knicks down by 6 with less than 2 minutes left, and you could kind of feel the win streak coming to an end. But then Jalen Brunson came along and did some Jalen Brunson stuff. We're going to talk about that game and the back-to-back sweep in Chicago. So let's do it. Let's talk Knicks. All right, let's get right into it. I'm joined by Kenney and Greg Poon. Guys, the Knicks are now 4 games over 500. They're tied for 5th in the East. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Always happy when the Knicks win. I was
too.
So I was traveling back to New York during most of this game, and so I got back to my apartment when they're losing by 3 at some point in the fourth quarter, and I elected not to turn the game on because I just didn't want to watch the Knicks lose. So I just was mentally prepared for a loss, and I was happily really saved my mood that they
Yeah,
won.
I think that's the normal kind of Knicks mentality is like you assume a loss and then you're pleasantly surprised if they win. But not lately. Lately they've been getting the big W's, and I watched this W, so that was exciting. And I think I had the kind of opposite experience as you guys, where like they were down 6 pretty late, and I was like, I think they might still win this because like I think they had been playing pretty well, and it got sloppy for a little bit, and I was just like, they just need to hit a few shots, and I think they got this, and they did. They did got this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I was on kind of daddy duty the most of the time for this game. I was watching my son, and so I'll have to go back and rewatch a lot of this one. But I did catch crunch time, and so I think we could probably just talk about crunch time, not only because that's what I saw, but it decided the game ultimately. I mean, I mentioned that the Knicks went down 6 with just under 2 minutes left. Miles Turner had just missed like 4 free throws in a row. And then there was a jump ball on the fourth missed free throw. The Knicks were not able to secure that rebound. And so it was a jump ball between Quentin Grimes and was it Nesmith?
Yep.
And the Pacers ended up winning that tap. It was Miles Turner actually saved the ball from going out of bounds. The ball made its way to Buddy Hield, who hit a tough step back 3 that I really didn't think had any shot when it left his fingertips. But it went down, and my stomach kind of dropped at that point. Like, oh, this might not be our night.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I never hit that point. And I think there was still like a decent amount of time left, but to your point, I don't know if it was right after that did Jalen Brunson come back and immediately hit a 3?
It
Is that
wasn't
what
directly
happened?
after that. So Brunson came down and missed a fadeaway, and then Julius Randle got the offensive board and just tried to muscle it up, and was unsuccessful. And he kind of was like stayed back and was complaining to the refs because he thought he got hit. And the Pacers just ran out and got a Nesmith dunk in transition, wide open, really, really rough, transition defense there. And that was, I mean, that's when they were down 104-98 with 156 left. And I was pretty sure that we were kind of done at that point. But that's when Jalen Brunson came down and hit that pull-up 3, which was just, I mean, I know people say it all the time, but like whenever the Knicks need a big basket, it's Brunson. He's the guy who's hitting the big shots, who's stopping opponents' runs, and who's just like getting the Knicks back in rhythm. It's really incredible and like uncanny that he's able to do this time and again.
Yeah, and it's been just so like different from years past, where it seems like down the stretch the Knicks weren't really sure what to do. I mean, I think 2 years ago it was just give it to Julius Randle, and he just made every shot that season. But last year, like there was no clear idea of what they were doing if they needed a bucket at any point in the game, not even just in the fourth quarter. If there was something happening and they needed a bucket to stop the bleeding, they didn't know what to do. They ran a lot of ISO unsuccessfully last season, and so like this year having Jalen Brunson in that role, and like it's like you said, whenever the Knicks need a big bucket, it seems like he can manufacture one on his own, which is something that the Knicks just haven't had in a while.
Yeah, And even at the beginning of this week, the Knicks were kind of going back to that bully ball situation with Julius Randle going ISO all throughout the fourth quarter against the Bulls. The first game where they won in overtime eventually, where you saw the offense stagnate, and Randle was hot for like 5 games in a row, so they started going back to him being the guy, and Brunson had a little bit of a tough stretch. So there was a couple games in there when it kind of switched back to being Randle being the guy in the fourth, but you always felt much more comfortable with when Brunson has the ball in his hands. He's been, had some uncharacteristic turnovers lately and hasn't really been the go-to guy down the stretch in the last couple of games, but he should be. Now that he showed why.
Yeah, Greg, we'll definitely talk more about that that Chicago kind of overtime crunch time win. I know there was a lot of consternation among Knicks fans, kind of how overtime finished up there. So we'll definitely get back into that. But just wrapping up on this Pacers game, just because it's top of mind. Like, Brunson wasn't done after he hit that step back three and cut the lead. He made a 1-possession game. He then got a steal on the other end and went in for a layup. Cut it to 1 in the span of like 30 seconds. It was really, I mean, we needed both those buckets so bad. And Brunson on defense, I know early in the season, like I think fans and analysts were fairly critical of Brunson on the defensive end. He is smaller and he has a hard time guarding in transition. But lately he has been so good in the passing lanes. He's been stealing those kickouts to the corner with regularly. And he got that big steal in a huge moment in this game. So, credit to him. He was doing it on both ends of the floor, and we needed every single play from him tonight.
Yeah, I think in the last 2 games in particular, he's been ridiculous in the pass lane. I think this game he had two steals, same way, like in the pass lane, just getting in there and getting in. The second one was, like you said, huge to cut it to a 1-point game with about a minute left.
Yeah, and the way the Knicks ended up getting the lead was kind of unorthodox, I'd say. Like so the Knicks ended up getting a stop after that. Miles Turner shot a 3. It was a fairly open 3, but he missed it, and he missed a lot of shots down the stretch. And so that was a good defensive possession overall. Julius Randle got the rebound. And the Knicks called timeout to try, this was less than a minute left, down 1. You're going to try and run your best play to get a bucket here. And Julius Randle was cutting towards the basket and just got fouled off ball. The Pacers challenged it, but it was pretty clear that the Pacers rookie, I think it was Nembhard, was like yanking Julius Randle's arm down. And so the refs had no choice but to call this foul. And Randle stepped up and hit both free throws. And that was kind of, I think Randle made a bunch of free throws down in crunch time of this one. I think he hit 6 straight free throws to ice this game. But after the Knicks went up by that 1 point, they never relinquished the lead after that. It was just kind of like a free throw shooting contest from there on out.
Yeah, I think it might have been all free throws from the Knicks from there on out. And I think we joked about that play because the Pacers ended up challenging that play, and it was just so clearly a foul. And I think you and I said, well, it's use it or lose it at that point. But then it turned out that the Pacers really could have used a timeout at the end of the game. So apparently, even if it's use it or lose it, maybe you don't need to use it because they ended up wasting a timeout on a very clear foul.
Yeah, and right after Randle hit those first 2 free throws, the Pacers came down and had a really bad turnover. Buddy Hield jumped in the air with nowhere to go. And Quentin Grimes was just there. It wasn't like a spectacular play from him. Buddy Hield literally just threw him the ball. And then Grimes he got a little shook there, honestly. Like he wasn't sure what to do. He had an opportunity to kind of dribble up the middle of the floor, and he didn't do that. He hesitated. He kind of slowly dribbled to the corner. He got over the half court line, picked up his dribble, got double teamed, and lost the ball. And so the Pacers got it back. And again, there was just like a lot of nerves there from on my end because it just gave another opportunity for the Pacers. But the Knicks defense has been really, really strong. I think they forced a step back 3 from Halliburton, which, man, I know we've always talked about Halliburton's shot, particularly off the dribble. That thing looks so blockable. Like it doesn't even look like he's shooting it. And he hit a couple in this game for sure, but this one this one did not go in. Knicks got the rebound, and that's when it was kind of a free throw shooting contest from there on out. And Julius Randle iced it. So I don't know, guys. I mean, overall, how are you guys feeling? Like, is it like the defense that's propelling these wins? Do you think is it anyone in particular? Or is it just like team basketball?
And I think the Knicks just kind of have a bunch of really solid players. I mean, we've talked about in the past where the Knicks just have too many like very okay players, to the point where they had Cam Reddish not in the rotation last year when they weren't even good. But now, you add Jalen Brunson to that mix, and you have Julius Randle and RJ Barrett stepping up more, and then you have all the subs just doing their jobs, and the complementary players. We talk a lot about Quentin Grimes, but about how he just fits so perfectly into the team. And Mitchell Robinson filling out the starting five. That's just a very, very solid starting five. And with all the minutes that Tibbs plays them, they're able to get stuff done. And the bench is able to just, more or less just kill time while the other people rest for however long they need. Julius Randle, 2 minutes a game of rest. Everyone else gets their 12 or so.
Yeah, and I think just like Greg alluded to, right now I think the team just fits together very well. I mean, I think having the Randle, Brunson, Barrett trio, and then Mitchell Robinson is a very good, role player in that, both offensively and defensively. Like on the offensive end, he's been a beast on the offensive boards. Defensively, like his ability to block and alter shots allows people to play up a little more on defense. And then Quentin Grimes, they talked about it on the broadcast today. Like he didn't get a ton of shots, but he had a huge three. He got 3 shots total in this game, but he had a huge three with the Knicks down. I think it was 6 with maybe 2-3 minutes to go to get the lead to 3. And like that is a tough thing to do, to go an entire game like barely shooting and then to hit a huge clutch shot. Like that's big. And so that's big for the Knicks to have him be able to do that and play defense on the other end. And then, they have all the guys they have coming in are pretty much, defensive guys. I'll say the one kind of thing that is just a weird fit has been the Hartenstein and Sims duo. But it's worked, so I'm not gonna complain about it. And Sims seems to be doing pretty well at when he needs to pull away from the basket and defend. So again, I'm not going to complain about it, but that's the rest of the rest of the team seems very cohesive, and that is working well enough right now while Obi is out.
Yeah, and it is going to be interesting when Obi comes back to see what happens to the rotation. I think that the cleanest thing to do would just be to swap Obi in for Jericho Sims. It's not like Sims is getting a ton of minutes right now. Like he got 9 minutes and 17 seconds in this one. In those Bulls games, he played 15 minutes and 8 minutes in the overtime game. So yeah, he's not getting like a ton of time, and you could see Obi fitting into those minutes, but Sims brings a whole different level of defense. I think that his switchability, it's not even just his rim protection. Like he's able to get out there on the perimeter. And I do want to talk about these Chicago games too, because I mean, even though Sims played limited minutes, he did some really impressive stuff in those. He switched out onto DeMar DeRozan at one point and shut him down on the perimeter. I think he did it another time against, it may have been Levine, but another perimeter player for the Bulls. And
he definitely shut down Caruso at one point.
For sure. Yeah, that was a big one too. Maybe less impressive when you say it out loud. But no, but those Bulls games were, especially, so the first one, we can just get into it. Knicks won this one in overtime. It was one that, like I mentioned before, the fans were kind of upset. It seemed like on Knicks Twitter, upset about how the offense was run down the stretch of this one. To Greg's point earlier, it was mostly run through Julius Randle in isolations. And I think, Kenny, I know you are like fed up with Knicks Twitter entirely. And I will say the only credence I'll give to that criticism is when we were seeing Julius Randle cooking early in the game and throughout this game, it was like a specific process that the Knicks were using where they were getting a switch that they liked, usually like Zach LaVine, sometimes Caruso, which actually that's not so much of a mismatch. Caruso is very good, very stout defensively. But a lot of times they were getting Zach LaVine's man to be in pick and roll with Julius Randle, getting that switch, and then having Randle go to work from like the nail or from an elbow, like not so far from the basket. And it seemed like, Kenny, I know you said like teams always go to their best players in isolation, whether you said that in a tweet or a text, I'm not sure. And that's true. But like you look at how Julius Randle was being successful earlier, it was from a very specific spot on the floor against certain matchups. And I feel like the Knicks did go away from what was working and kind of fell into this, kind of easier, just ISO ball clear out. And that's not really Randle's game right now. And so I do see why there was some criticism there, but overall, we're kind of picking nits. I think there were huge issues earlier in the season, and now we're kind of getting down to the nitty gritty, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, and I'll agree that we're picking nits because that was a fine shot. Like he got a good look and he just missed it badly. And if you want to blame Julius Randle for that, that's fine. But I don't, I'm not one to blame Tibbs because like that was a fine look. The player missed it badly, and like that's a shot that Julius Randle maybe not as much this season, but like previously that was a shot that he was making a lot, that baseline semi fadeaway. So like again, like I'm not gonna blame Tibbs on that.
Yeah, I think again, if you get the switch, get him to the elbow, get him to his spots, because that hasn't been his spot for a little while now. You're right, 2 years ago that really was that he's made the most shots from that spot in the entire league 2 years ago. And for whatever reason, that just hasn't been a productive area for him recently. And if I recall correctly, like we saw Julius Randle wave away at least one screen on that final play. I want to say that Brunson wanted to come up and set a screen for him or something. And Randle.
Yeah. Someone said that. I watched it. I didn't see anyone coming up to set a screen. I saw Grimes went across to clear out that side of the floor, and then Mitchell Robinson did the same.
So
like
maybe
both
it was
of them ran across. It might have looked like they were going. I don't think they were actually going to set a screen, but someone made that claim.
I think it may have been earlier in the game because I definitely saw Randle wave off multiple screens, but I think that was earlier maybe you're right. Maybe it wasn't that final possession. I think it was in crunch time though, but either way, the Knicks got this win. There were multiple, Randle ended up finishing with 31 points, 13 boards, 7 assists to 6 turnovers, which isn't great. But he got to the free throw line 15 times. He was 12 of 15 from the free throw line. So that kind of helped his efficiency on a night where he didn't really have it going so much from the field. He was 8 of 19 from the field. But man, if you get to the free throw line like that, like it's going to cover up a lot of your mistakes or blemishes. Jalen Brunson finished the game with an efficient 30. He was 11 of 21 from the field, hit all of 5 of his free throws. He was finished with 7 assists to just 2 turnovers. So it was a strong, solid game from Brunson. Quentin Grimes really found his stroke in this one. He was 4 of 7 from 3, and that was a welcome sight for Knicks fans because he has not been hitting his 3 ball so much lately. But really, all the starters who took threes. Randle was 3 of 7, Brunson 3 of 6. Grimes, I just mentioned, 4 of 7, and Barrett also 4 of 7 from 3. So both those last 2 guys who've been kind of struggling from behind the arc really found it in that Chicago game.
Yeah, and Grimes hit 2 clutch threes. He hit the one that put the Knicks up some out, and then in overtime he hit the one that bounced off the front of the rim and then went up and bounced in. And that one, I was yelling to myself in my apartment. That one got me going. So that was good. It was good to see.
Yeah, I think Grimes, and it goes back to what I was saying in this Indiana game. Like Grimes' ability to hit big shots without having to take a ton of shots, because like Greg said, he had 2 huge shots down the stretch of the Bulls game. In that Bulls game, he put up 8 shots total. So like it's not like he was launching a bunch. And again, that is a skill that the Knicks badly need, is a guy who can make shots but like doesn't need the ball in his hands at all times.
Yeah, I think that could take us right on to the next Bulls game, which really wasn't all that close. The Knicks won this one 114-91. They really opened it up in the second half, particularly that fourth quarter where they outscored Chicago by 11 points. But even the third quarter is kind of where that run started. But Grimes again, I mean, Kenney, to your point, he only took 10 shots in this one, finished with 22 points, 5 and 9 from 3. He looks really good. I mean, if he's hitting threes, he becomes such a complete player because we've seen him, progress in other areas of his game and being able to beat closeouts, put it on the floor, finish at the rim. The dude had one finish in this game that was crazy where he was like in transition and took like a shot over his head. The touch he has on his layups is ridiculous, and I wish he could transfer that to some other guys on the team, but that's neither here nor there. No, it's just like he's really an impressive player. He makes plays for his teammates, and then everything he does on the defensive end, like he doesn't have any holes in his game really. I'm not saying he's a perfect player, but like, what are his weaknesses?
Yeah, for his role, I mean,
Exactly.
he doesn't. So I mean, we're not asking him to be option 1A, which I mean he did that in the summer league and he was capable of doing it against lesser competition, but capable nonetheless. But he excels in what he's asked to do. So he's really just a perfect fit into this this offense and defense.
Unreal.
Yeah, and there also
Mhm.
there was a point in this game when Brunson was 5 for 5 from 3, and Grimes was 4 for 5 from 3. So that was off to a nice start in the first half.
Yeah, Brunson was lighting it up from behind the arc here. He finished with 22 points, 6 assists, 3 turnovers, 3 steals, which is really nice. RJ Barrett was the leading scorer in this game with 27 points, and he did that on 9 of 20 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, again, hitting his 3 balls, which is so nice, and only 6 of 11 from the free throw line. He actually left several points on the table there for him, but it's still like this was a game where his 3 ball kind of helped out with his efficiency too. Because so from 2, he was 6 of 15, not great, but you make up for that. Like I said, getting to the line, hitting your threes. Guys, we got to talk about it. Like RJ has really turned it around, not just from a box score standpoint. Like again, he's still making some mistakes, whether that's defensively or what have you, making some bad turnovers, especially in this Pacers game tonight. But overall, like compared to where he was to start this season, he is such a more helpful player, and that's what we need to see. Like there were so many games early in the season where he was downright detrimental to the team, and now it's not that way at all. He's actually being a helpful player, and it's just the right trajectory.
Yeah, and a lot of that you could just tell by watching. I don't think there was nothing this week where he was just so bad that I felt like he needed to get out of the game. I have no bad words to say about RJ Barrett this week. I've been very critical of him over the last month, a lot less because of the efficiency and more because of just how bad he looked at basketball when you watch. But now he looks a lot better. I mean, his shooting still is a little inconsistent. I know today me and Kenney were watching together for a minute, and he missed 2 wide open threes in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the game. But he ended the game 10 of 19. So I can't complain about those missing 2 threes because he just averages out in the end. I know he didn't hit a 3 today, but he just looks better, like you were saying.
Yeah, so he went 0 for 5 from 3 today, so 10 for 14 from 2, which is just phenomenal efficiency. And that's something that we talked about early in the season, because early in the season he was getting to the rim and he was throwing the ball nowhere near into the basket. And recently, he's been a lot more efficient at the rim. And today he had a couple like very nice moves. He had one where he kind of swept through, and you were a little questionable about whether that was actually a continuation, but he got the continuation bucket. And then he had another one where he drove in, he kind of slowed it down, he did a spin move and like got a nice left-handed layup. And it's like these are nice moves, whereas previously I felt like he was just barreling his way into and just using his strength to get to the rim. And he's making them, which is the big difference maker. And I think I mentioned last week, this offensive output that he's getting, I think it's building his confidence, and it's helping him on the defensive end just to have that confidence. And while he still makes a mistake here and there, it's so much better than it was. I think it's not the same level of getting blown by every single play. There are one or two a game where it's, you question, what he's doing out with on the defensive end, but for the most part, he's been a much more solid defender.
Yeah, Kenny, you read my mind. I was just going to go there with his defense, RJ's defense in particular. Like against DeMar DeRozan, that's who he was tasked with in the Chicago games. Like I think Grimes was on Levine mostly, and RJ was on DeMar, and he did a really good job. I know RJ fouled out in that first game that went to overtime, but some of those were really ticky-tack fouls. I thought he did a really nice job competing because DeMar is a tough cover. He gets a lot of guys into foul trouble. He's a very crafty player and all that. But RJ, I was impressed with his defense there. And then tonight, the Pacers, at least in the first half when I was kind of watching a little bit before I had to kind of tend to my child, the Pacers were targeting RJ a little bit. They were trying to get the switch of RJ onto Halliburton. And I didn't see that really work for Indiana at all. They were trying to get Grimes off of Halliburton so that Tyrese could make a play. And it really didn't really bear fruit for Indiana at all. Like RJ did a pretty solid job from what I saw. I'll have to go back and rewatch some of those possessions. But overall, very impressed with RJ. And I mean, what else can you say? Like he played 42 minutes in this game against the Bulls. Even in the game he fouled out, he played 34 minutes. The other Chicago game, he played 38 minutes. This is a dude playing a ton of minutes for a team that over the last 2 weeks has the number 1 rated defense in basketball. How bad can he be if you're playing? Like, how much of a weak link can you be if your team is having that much success with you on the court that much? Well, RJ, been a stud. I guess just going back to that second Bulls game real quick. The one kind of weak spot, I'd say. I mean, Emmanuel quickly finished the game 1 of 12 from the field, and that was a little disconcerting because he's really been struggling, like shooting the ball. I think that hasn't really affected his play, his defense so much. But his decision making has been a little questionable at times. I know, Greg, I think you mentioned he had a couple bad shots in this game. But I think overall, like Quickly is definitely struggling to put the ball in the basket. I don't know whether you'd attribute that to like all the trade rumors that are going around or what have you, but it's a little unsettling because this is a guy who plays with a ton of confidence, and unfortunately he just hasn't been able to find the basket today.
Yeah, and another part of that is this week, even though the Knicks were 3-0, they didn't have a double-digit scorer off the bench in any of these 3 games.
Yeah.
And Quickly is the guy who's pretty much basically with this 9-man rotation, he's the only guy of the 4 subs that you could reasonably expect to score double figures, and he just hasn't really had it in the last few games. So he does a lot of dumb stuff. We make jokes about 2 for 1 Quickly, but it's a real thing that he does every first and third quarter. He tries to go 2 for 1, with the first shot being the worst shot he could get with 30 seconds left on the clock. No matter where he is, he'll shoot it with 30 seconds left. And then a lot of the times that last shot, he tries to hold it until the last possible second. So the second shot is bad too. So he just needs to play smarter, is what I'd say. I mean, he's good when he plays free, but you just got to balance those 2 things.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I mean, yeah, there's not like much to say about Quickly beyond like you have to make your shots, because I think he does a good job of setting up teammates, and he's a smart player overall. He's a great rebounder. In this Pacers game, he only had 1 rebound, which is strange and makes you just wonder what's going on with him a little bit. But his defense, his off-ball defense in particular, has been huge. And like you just see the guys on the bench, they are not playing a ton of minutes, but when they do, like I'm thinking specifically about Deuce McBride, he's such just a game changer with his energy that he brings. I mean, just looking at his stat lines you would not think that this is a player who's like, hugely impactful. In that first Bulls game, he played 14 minutes, hit a couple threes, which was really nice, but just finished with 6 points. That was it. In the second Bulls game, he played again, just 13 and a half minutes, hit a couple shots, but I don't know. He just really brings this attitude and this physicality to the defense and to stopping penetration that, Derrick Rose certainly didn't have, the guy who was kind of his predecessor off the bench in that role. We really struggled with stopping opponents getting into the paint. Deuce is he's the best at it.
Yeah, and I think just kind of not even just Deuce, but Deuce, Grimes, and IQ, like that trio has been phenomenal defensively. And I think, the shift to the shorter bench and throwing Deuce into that rotation, that's when all of this started. And I don't want to say it's all because of that, but I think their focus on defense has really changed the mindset of the Knicks. And I think it said something like they hadn't given up less than 100 points in a game prior to this win streak, and I think it's happened 4 times in this win streak, maybe 3. And it's just been such a change. And like you said, I think the energy from Deuce is a big part of that.
And Kenny, you gave him his flowers earlier, but we should probably talk a little bit more about Mitchell Robinson, just because he's been that anchor. And, on the defensive end, he's been so good at defending pick and rolls, and he's been grabbing more rebounds. And then on the offensive end, like his offensive rebounding is teams have to game plan around him at this point. Like that's how he changes the game in that way. He gets the Knicks so many more possessions. In that second Bulls game, like the Knicks were not shooting the ball well at all, but they finished the game with just so many more field goal attempts than the Bulls had. It was 7. So the Bulls finished the game with 77 field goal attempts. The Knicks had 92. And it's not like there's a huge free throw discrepancy either. In fact, I think that is it pretty similar? No, the Bulls even had fewer free throws than the Knicks did. So it was pretty crazy just how many true shooting, like field goal attempts the Knicks had over the Bulls in that game. And a huge part of that is Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, and I mentioned it before with Grimes, but it's the same with Mitchell Robinson, that he just fits the need of the Knicks so well at the center position, because Randall, Brunson, and Barrett are such high usage guys. And Robinson, like, you don't have to do anything. He will go out there, get an offensive rebound, and score for himself on the offensive side. So it's just such, like I said, him and Grimes are just such a nice fit in that starting rotation.
All right, guys. So I do have to ask, we don't really have a timetable for when Obi Toppin's going to come back, but I'm curious with just how much success the team is seeing right now. Like, what do you expect to happen? I think I speculated that he would just take Jericho Sims minutes and that would be it. Do you guys agree that that's what would happen? Do you think that's what should happen? I'm curious what you think will happen when Obi returns.
I think
I think he's got a spot in the rotation for sure, even if it's just reclaiming his 14 to 15 minutes a night to give Julius Randle a break. But he's, like I said, the scoring off the bench has been non-existent. They need a little bit more of a spark. I feel like a lot of times when that bench unit ends, then you're just praying that they tread water and don't make things go too badly and wait until Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson can get back into the game. So I think having even though he's been super inconsistent offensively, having a guy who can score double figures on the offensive end would be beneficial. And, the Knicks have been playing this lineup with Hartenstein and Jericho Sims, with just is not aesthetically pleasing on offense. You have Hartenstein trying to be the stretch four. I know he can hit threes, but I don't know that I've seen him hit a three as the stretch four, more just as was the 5, came down in the corner, and today he tried to hit a 3 from the wing and just didn't hit it. So yeah, I don't really trust him as a 3-point shooter.
Yeah, and I think I had some false hope that Hartenstein was going to be a better 3-point shooter based on him hit the first 2 that he took in the preseason. and me not really watching much of him before that. But I agree that I think that Obi is going to reclaim the spot from Sims. But at the same time, I think the reason that this Jericho Sims Hartenstein kind of dynamic has worked so far is because of the shortened rotation. The Knicks are playing with whenever they have any of these guys in, they'll also have Randall, Barrett, or Brunson in the vast majority of the time. So it's not like when they were running 5 guys in and 5 guys out, and then you needed a scorer on the second unit in order to figure things out. So you needed a Derrick Rose or an Obi Toppin in order to get those points off the bench. Now that it's a shortened rotation, they have one of those guys in, and that's going to be the person scoring in that period of time, and everyone else is just going to be there to support them in that role. So I don't think that you need Obi's scoring, but I do think that just he's earned his spot in the rotation. And while I've loved what I've seen from Sims, I just don't see him overtaking those minutes from Obi.
Yeah, so I pulled up the stats here on Cleaning the Glass to see how the Sims Hartenstein minutes are actually doing. And so they've played 64 possessions together, and they're outscoring the Knicks are outscoring teams by 19 points by 100 possessions in those minutes. That's that differential would rank the 99th percentile league wide. Those minutes, those points are coming from the defensive end. They're only allowing 93.5 points per 100 possessions, which is in the 100th percentile. The offense has been below average, just like the eye test would suggest, but the defense has been dominant with Sims and Hartenstein. And I think it's because, Sims can defend opposing fours. He is quick enough to do that, but like that is some elite rim protection. I clipped a play from this Pacers game where both Hartenstein and Sims both went up to contest a layup, and whoever the poor Pacers player was just had no chance. I think it ended up being a Sims block, but there were just so many limbs and arms. And so I do question whether, the identity of this team, the reason why they've been winning games has been the defensive end. And so Obi, for as much as he does bring on the offensive side, like he has not been a good defensive player this year, especially towards the end before he got hurt. He was looking like he was regressing on the defensive end. And so I just wonder how much that might upset this kind of, defensive identity that we've set for ourselves during this win streak.
Yeah, and that is really the question, because like we talked about earlier, Sims has been great defensively, and like you just mentioned, even out defending fours. So like he is capable of playing that. I still don't love him playing with Hartenstein, and I still just don't see them giving up on Obi. So and Sims is the most obvious possibility for someone to drop out of that lineup. But is there an outside shot that he takes Hartenstein's minutes? I don't know. I don't see it, but like I see that as more viable than Obi just being out of the rotation.
Yeah, I think you're right. Obi will be in the rotation. It's just something to watch. We don't even know when it's going to happen. I don't think we've seen any reporting on when his return will be.
I think everything I've seen has said it's going to be a while,
and that's concerning in itself. So hopefully, I want him to come back. It's just I'm curious how it will play out when he does return. But until then, this team has been very good. It's not like they've had some really nice wins. It's really hard to beat teams back to back, especially on the road. I think that it was either Wally or Alan Hahn had a stat that like since like the NBA has kind of focused on teams playing back to backs against the same team, like I think that a team gets swept like 19% of the time. Like it's very rare for a team to lose 2 games in a row like that, or to win 2 games in a row conversely. So the fact they're able to go to Chicago and win both those is impressive, even though the Bulls have been struggling and haven't been that good. Still really nice job from the Knicks. So guys, I think we could probably start to look ahead at this point. Is there anything else you want to talk about or discuss before we do?
One quick thing from that Bulls game we didn't really mention. Kenney alluded to it earlier, but Derrick Rose return to Chicago was pretty special. He's been out of the rotation, but the Knicks were fortunate enough to get a big enough lead that Tibbs wanted to ask Derrick Rose if he wanted to play a few minutes. came in with about 3 minutes left, got a standing ovation and some MVP chants, and he hit his first three when he got in there. So crowd erupted. And then
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like the actual players on the Bulls don't really like each other. So I'm not sure watching that team is very fun. So I'm sure it was a high point for the fans.
Yeah, you got a nice cheer there. And I was going to bring up another thing. I thought Greg was about to bring it up, but I was going to give a special shout out to Jalen Brunson for what he did to Caruso in that first Bulls game. In overtime, he took him into the corner, crossed him over, and Caruso went one way, slid down on the ground, and Jalen Brunson just hit the three, and that was that. That was the game. So shout out to Jalen Brunson for doing that and kind of everything that he did in, I guess, overtime of that game and down the stretch of that game and the Pacers game. Didn't give him enough love today, but he definitely earned it. He's just so boring because he's so consistent.
Yeah, I mean, we probably should have even harped on it more in that first overtime win. Like Brunson was the reason that the Knicks won that game in overtime. He took over down the stretch and was that steadying presence, just as he was against the Pacers tonight. So, different game, same story from Brunson. The dude's, I guess one storyline we haven't talked about is like if we had to pick one, we actually talked about a little bit last week, is which player has a better case to be an all-star? Is it Brunson or Randall? It's pretty close at this point, I think. Like Randall had a really hot stretch. Before that hot stretch, he was decidedly the worst player. And Brunson's kind of just been more consistent. He's had some off games here and there, but overall, Brunson, I think, has been like the steadier presence. But Randall's been pretty sensational in moments too. So I'm curious to see if the Knicks are able to get an all-star this year, and B, kind of who that might be, or if they could even get two. I mean, that might be crazy talk, but worth discussing. It's podcast fodder.
Yeah, and we did this before the season, but there's just so many, all-star caliber players in the East right now. And then, we had a separate discussion of all of the good point guards in the NBA, and many of them are in the East. I know some of the Knicks broadcasts, I think it was Wally was just taking shots at Halliburton and trying to claim the All-Star not for Brunson above Halliburton, but there's a lot of good players, so it's tough to say. And I'd say as far as the Brunson versus Randall, I think when we had that conversation last week, Randall was in the midst of a 3 or 4 game just unconscious streak, and Brunson was having his first cold streak of the season, maybe 2 or 3 games. But I mean, I think Brunson has gotten back to stellar form, and the way that he's performed down the stretch of some of these games, I think he has the nod from me, in my very biased opinion, over Randall at this time.
All right, guys, I think we could probably look into to the upcoming games here. The Knicks play 4 games in the coming week. They've got the Warriors on Tuesday, then second night of a back-to-back. These are both home games versus Golden State, then home against the Toronto Raptors on Wednesday. Then we've got a home game against the Chicago Bulls. We'll play them for the 3rd time in a week. And then Sunday, Christmas Day, it's Knicks at home against the Philadelphia 76ers. I should mention that Steph Curry will not be with the Warriors for that Tuesday game. So, I mean, look, I think that we predicted 3-0 last week, and I think we have a policy at this restaurant.
I have a policy. You guys don't have to go along with my policy if you don't want to. You have enough people to outvote me.
I mean, look, if the Knicks were to win all 4 of these games, that would be an 11-game win streak, right? And would that be the longest win streak? Like, I don't know. Certainly, what did we say was the longest of the Thibodeau era?
9 times.
I mean, let's keep riding this high, guys. I don't know, Greg. You with that? You want to?
Yeah,
predict?
that sounds good to me. I mean, I see the first 3. No Steph. Raptors have been struggling, and
yeah.
The Bulls all hate each other. I mean, those are all very winnable.
And those are all at home. It's not like the Knicks have been killing it at home. They've actually been, I think, very good on the road. One of the better road teams in the league this year, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, look.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if we didn't have this policy, we'd be predicting wins for those first 3. So it's really, the policy's only affecting one game here. And, it's Christmas, so you might as well just pick the Knicks to win that one too.
It's a Christmas miracle.
A Christmas miracle. I love it. All right, 4-0. Good stuff, guys. Well, let's get to America's favorite sub podcast. What else is on? Greg, what else is on for you? What have you been watching?
So, as you know, the series White Lotus ended last week. So I watched that. It was fine.
I loved it. I thought it was really good. You just thought it was okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not really a White Lotus guy, I don't think. It's just a lot of buildup for not a lot of payoff in my mind. You think characters are gonna change, but I think the point is that they're not gonna change, as we've seen in our experience. And then
Or they changed for the worse
yeah,
in Aubrey Plazas. And I mean, there's no spoiler there.
Spoilers! I haven't seen this show.
We're helping you then, in my opinion.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good fitting ending, but no, there would be a lot of spoiler talk if we were to get into the details there. Greg, anything else beyond White Lotus?
I saw Avatar 2 yesterday.
Ooh,
It's a visual experience.
The Way of Water.
It's 8 hours long. It's
How
actually
long?
it's including previews, it was 3.5 hours long, which is a long time to be in a movie theater. I got to the point where I just started looking at my phone, but it was a good visual experience. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Were you a big fan of the first Avatar? Like, did you go back and revisit that to brush up for this one?
So, I mean, I saw the first Avatar a bunch of times. I didn't see it in theaters. I heard that it's a whole different experience, but it was a whole different experience. 3D movies are always crazy. I hadn't seen one since Alice in Wonderland.
You saw it in 3D?
Yeah, 3D IMAX.
The Johnny Depp one?
Yeah.
Huh. Cool. Kenny, what else is on?
I have been getting a little bit into the Christmas spirit this last week. I've watched a couple Christmas movies. I watched A Christmas Story, the first Christmas Story, so to set it up so I can watch the second Christmas Story, which I haven't done yet. I watched Noelle. Have you guys seen this? Have you heard about this? I think it's a year or two old. It's Anna Kendrick. And I enjoyed it. It's a Christmas movie, so it's not the greatest storyline I've ever seen, but Anna Kendrick I think is phenomenal in her role in that movie. So if you haven't seen it, it's entertaining for me.
I thought you were talking about our Knicks predictions, Noel's.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's getting late.
And then so those are those two full movies that I watched, and then I started watching 8-Bit Christmas on HBO Max, and then the Knicks game started. So Greg actually got here while I was watching that, and then the Knicks game started, so we switched over to that. So that will be on my next one. It's Neil Patrick Harris. I haven't gotten very far in, but it seems like a Neil Patrick Harris kind of not quite Princess Bride, but he's basically just telling the story to his daughter of his Christmas as a child.
Like How I Met Your Mother a little?
Yeah, a little How I Met Your Mother.
Just went back to that well.
Yeah. Neil Patrick Harris. Perfect. He's got a genre and he understands that.
Yeah.
So what about you, Tom? What are you watching over there?
Rose and I started the show. So after White Lotus, we were looking for something new. And so we started watching Search Party. Have you guys seen this show?
I saw Search Party.
You did?
I don't think so.
With the girl from Arrested Development.
Maybe. Funke.
No, it's definitely her.
That's why I said Funke, was to stop you from doing that.
Well, some people are unstoppable.
Well, so yeah, two episodes in, I'll say, like, Rose and I were kind of like, this isn't that great. But then we always do this thing where we like compare shows early on, like the characters of those shows to the characters of another show that we just watched like 8 seasons of, where it's like, yeah, obviously by season 8 of New Girl, you're going to love all these characters way more than characters you've just met for the first time. Like you shouldn't be kind of comparing all the time you've spent with Schmidt to like these new characters from episode 1 of the pilot of Search Party. But I do that anyway.
Yeah.
Another guy in Search Party is the dude from I Think You Should Leave, who did not want to split the bill and he hates this game.
Yeah.
And he was
He's
also
a funny guy.
also in the after party. So no, we're now 4 episodes in. We're glad we stuck with it because it's been good so far. It's been pretty fun. Greg, did you like it?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. So one thing I will say, if you choose to continue on in your journey, is that every single season is just a completely different television show,
Really?
which is pretty impressive thing to do. There's all, I mean,
Like a different
you know,
genre?
at points, yeah.
Huh.
Yes, yes.
I mean, so
So
far I like
kind of
this
like the
television
after party,
show.
yeah.
I had fun.
All right. Well, I had fun with this podcast, guys. We can probably wrap it up there. If you're still listening, we appreciate you. Definitely go to your podcast apps, like, subscribe, review, leave comments, do all the things. Follow us on Twitter at Talkin Knicks. Follow us on Instagram at Talkin Knicks. Follow us on YouTube. I didn't talk about it at the top, but we've gotten some new subscribers there. That's nice. We've been putting some video breakdowns and stuff like that on there, as well as these full episodes of this. And yeah, we might be getting a Mastodon. Is that right, Kenny?
I looked into it. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but yeah, we'll get on Mastodon just
If
for
we
kicks.
do, we can't talk about it on Twitter though. We don't want to get
Yes.
there. So
It's verboten.
all right, guys. Well, we appreciate everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time on Talkin Knicks. Until then, hey, let's go Knicks.
Next take.